The snow fell like shards of glass that night, each flake a tiny blade against Marcus Chen's face as he stepped out of his downtown office building at nearly midnight. The blizzard had descended on the city without warning, transforming familiar streets into hostile, unrecognizable terrain. Most people had fled hours ago, retreating to the safety of heated homes and warm beds. But Marcus had stayed late again, lost in quarterly reports and merger proposals, his 38th floor office a fortress of glass and steel that kept the world at bay. He was pulling his coat tighter when he saw her, a small figure huddled against the base of a street lamp across the deserted avenue, so still she might have been a pile of discarded rags except for the cloud of breath rising from her hood. The CEO of one of the city's largest investment firms stopped in his tracks, his polished leather shoes already soaked through, and felt something crack open in his chest that he thought had sealed shut years ago. The little girl couldn't have been more than 7 years old, her purple winter jacket far too thin for the savage cold that was dropping temperatures toward dangerous levels. Marcus found himself crossing the street before he'd made a conscious decision to do so, his expensive briefcase forgotten on the sidewalk behind him. As he drew closer, the child looked up with enormous brown eyes that held a strange mixture of fear and desperate hope. Her lips were turning blue, her small hands wrapped around her knees in a futile attempt to conserve warmth. Before Marcus could speak, she said in a trembling voice that somehow cut through the howling wind, "Are you Marcus Chen? Mom said you're the only one who can help us. If you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, please hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more meaningful stories to life." Marcus felt the world tilt slightly on its axis. He knelt down in the snow, heedless of his $1,000 suit, and asked the girl her name. She told him it was Lily, and then she reached into her jacket with shaking fingers and pulled out a photograph, its edges worn soft from handling. The image showed a young woman with warm eyes and a hesitant smile, standing in front of a small bakery with flour dusting her apron. Marcus didn't need to read the faded sign behind her to know exactly where that photo had been taken. The memories came flooding back with brutal clarity, washing away 15 years in an instant. Elena. Sweet, ambitious Elena who had worked 2 jobs to help him through business school when he had nothing but dreams and a mountain of debt. Elena who had believed in him when no one else did, who had sacrificed her own culinary aspirations so he could chase his fortune. Elena whom he had left behind when success finally came calling, too proud and too ashamed to face what he had become, too caught up in climbing higher to remember who had built the ladder. The little girl's voice brought him back to the freezing present. She explained through chattering teeth that her mother was sick, very sick, and they had lost their apartment 3 months ago. They had been staying in shelters, moving from place to place, but her mother had gotten worse and the hospitals wouldn't help without insurance, wouldn't even see them after the initial emergency room visit had drained what little savings remained. Elena had sent Lily to find Marcus because she remembered reading about his success in an old newspaper someone had left at the shelter, remembered the boy she had once loved who had promised to change the world. She had told Lily that if anyone could help them now, it would be him, even though they hadn't spoken in over a decade, even though he had walked away without explanation or apology all those years ago. Marcus scooped Lily into his arms without another word, feeling how light she was, how fragile, and carried her toward his car in the parking garage. The child directed him through streets made treacherous by ice and snow, past neighborhoods that grew progressively shabbier, until they arrived at a shelter on the edge of downtown that Marcus had driven past 1,000 times without really seeing. The building was overcrowded and overheated, filled with the sounds and smells of desperate humanity packed too close together. Elena was lying on a narrow cot in the women's section, her face gray and drawn, her breathing shallow and labored. When she opened her eyes and saw Marcus standing there with her daughter, something flickered across her features that might have been relief or might have been resignation or might have been a complicated mixture of both. She tried to sit up, tried to speak, but Marcus gently pressed her back down and told her not to waste her strength. He could see the pneumonia written in every ragged breath, could see how the years of struggle had worn her down from the vibrant young woman he had known into someone who looked 20 years older than she should. Elena managed to whisper an apology for bothering him, for sending Lily out into the storm, but she hadn't known what else to do. The shelter nurse said she needed to get to a hospital soon or the infection would become too severe. Marcus felt shame burn through him like acid, corrosive and absolute, as he realized that while he had been accumulating wealth and power and all the trappings of success, the woman who had made it all possible had been fighting just to survive. He made phone calls. Lots of them. His personal physician, roused from sleep, agreed to meet them at the best private hospital in the city. An ambulance arrived within 15 minutes, the paramedics treating Elena with a gentleness that spoke to substantial financial incentive. Marcus rode with them through the still raging blizzard, holding Lily on his lap while she clung to her mother's hand. At the hospital, everything moved with the smooth efficiency that money commands. Doctors appeared, tests were run, IV antibiotics were administered, and Elena was moved to a private room with a view of the city lights glittering through the snow. Lily curled up in the chair beside her mother's bed and fell asleep almost instantly, exhausted by fear and cold and the terrible burden of responsibility no child should have to carry. Marcus stood at the window as dawn began to break over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that seemed impossibly beautiful after the darkness of the night. A doctor found him there an hour later and delivered the news that Elena would recover, that they had caught the pneumonia in time, but that she was severely malnourished and exhausted, that she would need weeks of rest and proper care. The doctor also mentioned, with careful professional neutrality, that Lily showed signs of chronic hunger and that both mother and daughter would benefit from stable housing and regular meals. Marcus heard the unspoken judgment in those words and accepted it as deserved. Over the following days, as Elena slowly regained her strength, the full story emerged in fragments and quiet conversations. After Marcus had left, Elena had tried to keep the bakery dream alive, but a bad business partner and a predatory loan had destroyed her financially. She had discovered she was pregnant with Lily shortly after everything collapsed, and pride had kept her from reaching out to Marcus, from asking for help from someone who had made it clear through his silence that she no longer mattered to him. She had worked whatever jobs she could find, had given Lily everything she could, but the climb out of poverty had proven impossible when every step forward was met with 2 steps back. Illness, job loss, rising rents, unexpected expenses, the 1,000 small disasters that compound into catastrophe when there is no safety net to catch you. Elena had fought with everything she had, but sometimes love and determination are not enough against a system designed to keep people down once they fall. Marcus listened to all of this and felt the carefully constructed walls around his heart crumble completely. He had spent 15 years telling himself that his success was entirely self-made, that he owed nothing to anyone, that the past was irrelevant compared to the glittering future he was building. But standing in that hospital room, watching Lily color pictures for her mother while Elena slept, he understood with absolute clarity that every achievement he had claimed as solely his own had been built on Elena's sacrifice. She had believed in him when he was nothing, had supported him when he had no reason to deserve it, and he had repaid her by vanishing the moment he no longer needed her help. The realization should have destroyed him, but instead it rebuilt him into something better. Marcus made more phone calls, pulled strings, called in favors from people who owed him. He found Elena and Lily an apartment in a safe neighborhood with good schools, not a penthouse but a real home with sunlight and space to breathe. He hired lawyers to sort out Elena's old debts and financial tangles, discovering that most of what she thought she owed had been inflated by predatory interest rates and illegal fees. He set up trust funds for Lily's education and Elena's future. But more than the money, more than the practical assistance, he offered something that perhaps mattered more: he showed up. Day after day, he came to the hospital and later to their new apartment, helping Lily with homework, bringing Elena books she loved, slowly rebuilding a connection that had never entirely died despite years of silence and separation. Elena asked him once why he was doing all of this, whether it was guilt or pity or some attempt to assuage his conscience. Marcus thought about the question for a long time before answering. He told her it was all of those things and none of them. It was recognition that success without compassion is merely accumulation, that wealth without purpose is just numbers in an account. It was understanding that the person who had helped him become successful deserved to share in that success not as charity but as delayed justice. It was the knowledge that Lily, sitting alone in a blizzard, trusting that a stranger with her mother's memories would save them, represented a faith he needed to prove worthy of, even if he had failed to earn it earlier. Most of all, it was the realization that the best version of himself was not the ruthless CEO who had forgotten where he came from, But the young man Elena had believed in all those years ago, someone who understood that true strength lies in lifting others up rather than climbing over them. Marcus had spent 15 years becoming successful, but it took one night in a blizzard to teach him how to be good. The corporation would continue, the deals would still close, the wealth would keep accumulating, but now it would all mean something beyond mere acquisition. He started a foundation focused on helping single parents avoid homelessness, funded housing initiatives, and personally mentored young entrepreneurs from difficult backgrounds. He became the person he should have been all along, and it was Elena's grace in forgiving him and Lily's innocent faith that made the transformation possible. If this story touched your heart or made you think differently about success and second chances, please leave a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Before we end, I want to ask you something special. Drop a comment below telling us about a time someone showed you unexpected kindness, or when you had the chance to help someone in need. Your stories inspire us all. The blizzard that had nearly claimed 2 lives ended up saving 3. Elena rebuilt her life with the security to dream again, eventually opening the bakery she had sacrificed years ago. Lily grew up knowing that family can be found and rebuilt, that mistakes can be forgiven, and that sometimes the coldest nights lead to the warmest dawns. And Marcus learned that the measure of a person is not how high they climb but who they bring with them on the journey. On winter nights, when snow falls soft against the windows of his office, he still thinks about that moment when he saw a small figure huddled against a street lamp and made the choice to stop, to see, to help. It was the best decision he ever made, worth more than every business triumph combined, because it reminded him that being human matters more than being successful, and that redemption is always possible for those brave enough to face their failures and do better. Some blizzards destroy, but others clear away what was broken to make room for something stronger to grow in its place.